Hello, I'm Henry, and I read a book. I read this book, Scott Pilgrim vs. the Universe by Brian Lee O'Malley, and I would like to talk about it, please. Real quick though, just wanted to thank everybody. We crossed 200 subscribers recently, and it doesn't even feel that long ago that we crossed 100, so thanks a lot, everybody. Anyway, onward. It has been a minute, hasn't it? Enough time for a refresher. Yes, we do a refresher at the beginning of all the videos in this series, but this time it's actually needed. What are we doing here? Well, we are trying to answer the question, can Scott Pilgrim beat Superman in a fight? How do we answer that question? Well, we are going through each of the Scott Pilgrim books, finding each instance of him doing something superhuman, using the Superpower Wiki to find out exactly what superhuman ability it is, rather than just lumping everything together as video gamey superpowers, finding his limits, his parameters, and compiling everything he can do into a detailed list. Looking at that list and comparing it to a list of common abilities that Superman usually has, will give us the answer to the question if Scott Pilgrim can beat him in a fight. Well, we've already covered 4 books, so the list of abilities that Scott Pilgrim has so far is quite detailed and extensive. So let's have a refresher for the list too. Number 1, Scott has access to a subspace highway. Essentially, a parallel dimension that allows him to travel whatever distance he needs to in a matter of seconds, which will also allow him to come at Superman from different angles and serve as something as a bit of an inescapable prison for the Man of Steel. There is the potential issue of needing to use special doors to access subspace. However, as we established right at the very beginning of the first video, Scott has a subspace highway running through his own head, which means he's always got access to it, because it is a part of him. Number 2, limited fourth wall manipulation. He can break the fourth wall for some mid-level comedy, but he can also control it to some degree. He can think things and then they happen. Things revolving around real-world literary devices. It only seems to revolve around these literary devices, which is why we're calling it limited for now. We'll see if he can eventually freely bend his own reality, but for the moment we are saying he cannot. Number 3, the upper end of a supernatural body. He's beaten up a guy who can punch holes in the moon, and he's able to dodge and block attacks from someone moving so fast they appear as invisible. Scott Pilgrim is, without a shadow of a doubt, a physical match for Superman. He's just as strong, he's just as fast, he's just as durable. If it comes to blows, and it will come to blows, both can give as good as they get. Number 4, basic to advanced force field generation. We've been a bit dismissive of this force field, but it can block energy attacks, and Superman can shoot lasers out of his eyes. Basic to advanced force field could easily block those. Number 5, illusion manipulation. We've derived this from his ability to create after images, which means Scott Pilgrim is magic and has access to illusion-based magic. Superman is famously susceptible to magic, so this is a big plus for Scott. Number 6, items. We're letting Scott use items, and in the last book he actually got one that he can keep and use. He got a sword called the Power of Love, which gives him +2 to guts, +3 to heart, +1 to smarts, and +1 to will. Seeing as these are a bit more mental stat buffs and not physical ones, I wouldn't say this sword gives Scott an edge over Superman physically. But I would say these buffs give Scott a mentality boost. Maybe he'd be a lot less likely to give up now. Maybe he'd be a lot more likely to fight to the bitter end. Number 7, save point interaction. Just being able to see save points is superhuman, but Scott himself hasn't actually used one yet, so we're holding fire and we're not looking into this ability now. Number 8, an extra life. Again, we've got no use of this extra life yet, because Scott Pilgrim hasn't died yet. But I mean, I'm guessing he will, otherwise why have this? Does that count as a spoiler, actually? So with all this stuff and all these abilities, we came up with a conveniently tense answer to the question, can Scott Pilgrim beat Superman in a fight? It will be a draw. Things are delightfully poised going into this penultimate book. First though, my real quick thoughts on this penultimate book. This won't be a super in-depth review, just my general impressions, what I liked, what I didn't like. We get the R slur on the 5th page. I didn't like that. And then a few pages later, we get what I'm guessing to be an author insert cameo character just grinning at the camera. Proud of your slurs, Mr. O'Malley, are you? You must be, because you drop another one on the 30th page. I'm guessing this was just the style at the time, that time being 2009. Is that a year we should have known better by? Or is that so long ago that this is all fine? I mean, I was still at school in 2009, so maybe it is that second thing. Anyway, sorry, this isn't a slur report, this is a book report. I liked the last one. Did I like this one? Less so, but I do know why. It's very sad, it's very bleak, and it's very miserable. Scott and Ramona go through some real relationship trouble, and they learn heavy things about each other. They break up, they get back together, they break up again, and it's not the sort of shouty relationship drama. This is the sort of muted, we've both done bad things and it's all ruined and it's all horrible kind of relationship drama. The prominent side characters are all quietly suffering with their own issues. People cry, people leave, people get hurt. It's really quite hard to get into something like that. I'm not saying it's bad. On the contrary, this is all done intentionally. So it's actually really good. It's just difficult to relax and enjoy the same way I did with the positive, chilled out previous book. I mean, this is the second to last book in the series, so you need to have your hero at a low point before the climax. There needs to be an all is lost moment. It's there in nearly every traditionally structured story. However, in a regular movie or a regular book, that moment doesn't last very long. It's like a scene or a few scenes at most. Here, it is the whole book. The whole book is setting up or is the all is lost moment. The characters are at their lowest point for a really long period of time, and it does wear on you a little. Obviously, this will make it, when they will bounce back from their lowest points, all the more cathartic. But when this book is consumed in isolation, it is kind of rough. But hey, funny joke alert. I mean, despite the relentless sadness and miserableness of this book, I did actually laugh out loud quite a lot. I am officially on board with its comedy now, especially because there's no fourth wall breaking. There's also this plot point that I wanted to mention about Ramona's head glowing, which in a black and white medium is quite hard to depict. So it's done like this. However, they also wanted to do a joke about Scott having this thing kind of like Spidey sense, and to do that they depicted it like this, but because they look so similar they just have to straight up tell you what is happening here. I just thought that was quite funny. I am also pleased to announce there isn't a single instance, at least not one that I saw, of author Brian Lee O'Malley creepily pointing out a child's age. Look at that. Scott Pilgrim is growing as a person, and the man who created him is also growing as a person. We are making progress. Okay, that's my thoughts on to the superpowers. The first superhuman thing of Scott we see in this book is him fighting a robot. Now, for someone who beat up a guy who could punch holes in the moon, Scott does let this fight go on for quite a while, but we don't get this robot's parameters. Maybe it too could punch a hole in the moon. Anyway, Scott beats it. Nothing really to report here, nothing special, nothing new. Then he beats another robot, off screen mostly, with also nothing really to report on. Then he beats another robot. This one's bigger, but still nothing that really pushes Scott above moon punching level. After these three robots, Scott then fights the two guys who have been sending the robots. This one isn't too notable either. However, he does do it with a hangover, which is actually incredibly impressive. I'm no stranger to hangovers. I had a mild hangover when I wrote this script. Lol Tyson Fury, you big dosser. And as you can tell from the quality of this script, a hangover compromises your abilities. So the fact that Scott Pilgrim is able to fight two superhuman people at the same time whilst talking to someone else with a hangover is really impressive. I wouldn't go so far as to give him anything like poison immunity, but it might be something to keep in mind if Superman decides to employ some alcohol-based strategies. He beats those two people, by the way. He fights two superhuman people at the same time with a hangover, and he wins. And he turns them into coins. I've been ignoring this, and I'm not too sure why. I thought maybe it was just an aesthetic of like this video gamey style world. When people die, they turn into coins. That's that. But the whole point of these videos is to look past all the video gamey stuff and actually figure out what's going on. I've said that in every video intro. I said it in this video intro. So let's actually do that. When Scott Pilgrim kills a person, they turn into coins. What is going on there? Alchemy. Scott is transmuting matter into gold. You'd better believe the Superpower Wiki has a page for alchemy, and it says, user can utilize alchemy, the magic and scientific pursuit of the power of the Philosopher's Stone and universal panacea, focusing on elemental transmutation ranging from transforming base materials into purer, lead or iron into silver or gold, to making permanent changes on the state of matter, making glass malleable or durable, etc., various forms of elemental manipulation, especially electricity and fire, and life force manipulation, immortality, healing, and even creating life, or at the least clones/homunculi. They also know how to create potions for rejuvenation and immortality, and magical items, although these are generally for practical use. I don't know what a philosopher's stone is. Maybe they mean sorcerer's stone. Jokes aside, I think we can disregard most of this. Scott Pilgrim ain't creating no homunculus. But elemental transmutation is definitely something we can drill down on, because that's what he's doing with this coin situation. For this, the wiki says, the user can transmute chemical elements / rearrange atomic structures, changing any element, whatever its state, solid, liquid, gas, or plasma. This is some tastiness right here. If Scott can turn a person into coins, I'd absolutely say he could rearrange atomic structures and change elements into other elements or states. And atomic structures are universal, so if Scott can do that to a human, he can also do it to a Kryptonian. Scott Pilgrim, if he wants to, could turn Superman into a handful of Canadian dollars. The worst kind of dollars. And I don't think Superman has a real defense for this other than like dodging and being fast and getting his big hits in first. The only other superhuman thing he does in this book is another bit of subspace use. But as we've established, that's well within his wheelhouse now. Plus it was with Ramona. And there isn't anything else superhuman Scott does in this book. So, can Scott Pilgrim beat Superman yet? Nearly. I promise I'm not logging this out for the sake of tension across the video series. I genuinely think it would still be a draw even after this book. We've added the alchemy. That's a pretty huge deal, but Scott actually needs to be able to get it off. And in that time, Superman could also get his own stuff off. I don't know, I just don't think it's the insta win yet. They're matched physically. Scott's got his fourth wall stuff and his illusions and his force fields and his sword and his subspace, and now he's got his alchemy. I just think he needs something a little bit more to get him over the line. Superman is the person everyone matches characters up against for a reason. He's no joke, and we need to be 100% sure that he will lose before we say anything definitive. Scott's going to need a little bit more to get to that 100%. I'll see you in the last book. Amazing. Like, honestly, just you sit down. Hello everyone. Thanks a lot for getting to the end of the video, and thanks again for getting us across 200 subscribers. I really do appreciate that. I know this video sort of came in 1 week early. I didn't do 2 weeks of top trumps. I think that those 4 weeks of posting a full video every single Monday has sort of opened my eyes to what I can actually do. And so I think what we're going to do going forward is a proper full video every other Monday with only 1 week of top trumps in between to break it up. The only real limit to that will be my ability to read quickly, because that's not really an ability I have. So the next full video will be a proper book one. So after that it will be top trumps, Scott Pilgrim 6, top trumps, movie, top trumps, the new thing that I'm going to be doing in the place of Scott Pilgrim, top trumps, then the other book. So that's 8 weeks. I think I can read a book in 8 weeks. It'd be very depressing if I can't.